Guitar is cool, but man is it confusing to learn. Hey, John here with your Tuesday Blues, where it's all about helping you find your breakthroughs on the guitar so you can play the music you love. And today we're going to tackle something that confused the heck out of me for years. All right, think with me for a minute. If the guitar was a one-string instrument, it would be pretty hard to get lost, right? I mean, you could just go up or down one string. You could play only one note at a time. And that simplicity sounds really nice, but you're definitely going to be limited. You couldn't even do a power chord. You can't play two notes at the same time. So we've got a bit of a trade-off. We add more strings and we really up the complexity. Now, I spent so much time trying to understand the fretboard, and when I look back over some of the breakthroughs that I had, one thing really stands out, and it's getting over this real huge point of confusion. Redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. Yep, that's right. The same musical pitch exists in multiple spots on the guitar. Compare that to an instrument like a piano where it really only has one place to play each separate note. For instance, if you're looking for middle C on a piano, it exists in one spot on one key of the piano. But here's middle C on the guitar. Now, I'm not saying that piano is simpler or somehow easier than the guitar, but what I am saying is that the built-in redundancy of notes on the guitar can be super confusing. It definitely tripped me up for a lot of years. For me, the sameness and the repetition of the single pitches really just kind of got lost amid the big box patterns that I was practicing, and those are important. You should definitely practice them, but let's also spend some time building a musical awareness of the fretboard. Let's take this line in E minor, for example. We can move this exact line into other positions on the fretboard. Here we just did it on one string. We can certainly pull in some other strings and still play the same pitches in that order. And doing this as an exercise is really one of the best ways to map out the fretboard and realize where things repeat on different strings, different positions, and that will allow you to leverage that redundancy versus get thrown off by it. So let's do that. Let's move this line around into another position, and we'll kind of tackle these redundant notes head on by doing this. We're going to start in the same spot, and just as a recap, here's the line. Mostly on the first string, we drop down to the second string for that D note, just once in that particular example. And then what we're going to do is start for this second example just like before, but instead of dropping down to the G, we can also play the G here, same pitch. And that's the key. This is that redundancy. G, G. And then we just continue to walk down in the same way intervallically that we did in our example line. What I mean by that is once we got to that G, we drop down a half step and then a whole step. Right? G, F sharp, E. Same up here. G, F sharp, E. Same notes. Then we'll repeat that sequence. Then we need a D. We played it there before. Let's play it here, third string, and then back to our E. Whereas before we played it open, you probably already know there's an E right there, second string. Now in example 3, we're going to do that again, moving things up the neck a little bit more. So we're utilizing some redundancies in this section of the fretboard. Let's give it a listen. All right, so let's point out the redundant notes now, where they've moved. We played the A here before, but now if we kind of shift up and think this way more, we can play the A on the 10th fret, second string. So there's the G that we examined in the second example, F sharp, repeat that, and then here is the E. So instead of here, or even here, we've got the E on the 9th fret of the third string, and the D we used before in example 2, and then we end here on this G. All right, we could keep going and map these notes out a couple more times. We're going to do that. But before we do that, let's pause and talk about why you would ever even want to do this. I mean, if this line sounds pretty much exactly the same in all these places, who cares where we play it, right? Two reasons. First, it really does sound slightly different. Even though it's the same musical pitch, playing the same note on a different string gives a certain character to the note. The timbre, or the character of the sound, is slightly different. And we can really use that to craft the sound that we're looking for. Think about the notes on the first string. It sounds kind of thin and brittle, and that can sound like exactly what you're going for at times, but perhaps maybe that's not what you want. And maybe you'll opt for something a little more round and kind of with the edge knocked off of it a little bit, a little more full and developed as far as that character of the note. All right, so let's have a look at example 4 and 5, and I'll play the exact same musical pitches, but I'll alter where I play them. The different strings will come into play here, and listen carefully for the subtle differences in the character of the notes that I'm playing. Oh, and the second reason that I think the redundancy can actually help us is that we can leverage these duplicate notes on the fretboard to help us shift positions on the fretboard and gain access to higher or lower notes. Let's take a look at what I mean in the next couple of examples. What we're going to do here is start out with our line as we played it in the first example, but then I'm going to transition into A minor in the first position, this open position, and we're going to hit some of the lower strings that are really easily available to us now that we're down here. And we can't really easily or conveniently do that if we're playing this line all the way up here. You'll see in the example. All right, this obviously works both ways, right? So we can take a line and arrange it so that we're generally climbing up the fretboard. We're going to do that right now. So have a look at this example where the second half really climbs because we're kind of already in that spot. Here's example number 7. This exercise will help you bust through the confusion on the fretboard caused, at least in part, by some of these duplicate notes. You'll really learn how to use them to your advantage versus getting tripped up by them. That's the idea. So I want you to take some time and move some lines around the fretboard. Make up your own, make them as simple or as complicated as you can handle, and I think you'll start seeing some real results with your confidence on the fretboard really quickly. And if you want to keep learning, click or tap right over here, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, practice smart and play on.